That's like magic. So thanks, Lacey and Justin, for being on, and anyone else who's on. Did either of you guys get a chance to read the book?
I have not yet.
True confession.
I have not, but thank you for signing it and sending it. So it's definitely my goal is to get it completed in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm halfway through, and my goal is to finish hopefully in about a week.
Awesome. All right, it's 11:30. So thank you guys for being on the book club call. And today, the book is Don't Say No for the Prospect, written by yours truly. And it was definitely a labor of love and kind of easy because there were just a bunch of stories. So I thought it was going to be odd for me to interview myself. So I asked my dear friend Barry Wolfe with Marcus and Millichap, who I think you guys have heard Barry speak up on some of the prior book club calls. And he's a dear friend, and we've tried to do some business together for sure. Soon, Barry, we will. And so I'm going to turn it over to Barry, and Barry's going to ask questions. But absolutely, I think, Barry, you're good with people jumping in and asking questions as well, right?
100%. Please do. Yeah, so, I mean, it was, I guess, first, congrats. I mean, it really, I know it's not easy to do what you did as far as focusing on it and making a priority and writing a book like this, and it really was a fantastic read. It's got a ton of fantastic information in there. It's a quick read. I mean, I'm not the fastest reader in the world by any stretch of the imagination. It really didn't take me long to go through it, so it's a really easy read, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have a ton of great information. Just it's story, so it goes pretty quickly, so it really is a fantastic read, so I encourage anybody in the industry or even not in our industry to read it. So I guess congrats. And then what was kind of the backstory? I'm curious as to why do you decide to write a book? What kind of made it come to be? Why did you decide to kind of finally, not finally, I don't mean it that way, but to kind of bring it to fruition? What's kind of the backstory of it?
Sure. So I do a lot of workshops and consulting and coaching around the country, as many of you know, and it always seems like at the end of the workshop or at the end of the round table, if I'm at an ICSE or some meeting function, inevitably someone walks up and says, so when are you writing the book? And I think I heard that enough. And I always, I was an English literature major at Florida State. So I like the idea of writing, and I like doing a lot of the blogs that I write, but it just always seemed very overwhelming. And I asked a friend of mine, Angel Cicerone, who wrote a tenant mentorship book, and I said I was very proud of her for writing that book, and I said, I asked her one day, we were in New York and we were out to dinner, I said, so, how did you get it done? And she goes, every day for 20 minutes I wrote. And I'm thinking, and I literally, started getting dizzy thinking, okay, there's no way that I'm going to do that. And then I had an opportunity to be at an event with Gary Vaynerchuk, who everyone, on these calls knows I love, and I asked him, how in the world did you take time to write a book? And he said, I didn't. And I said, what do you mean? And he goes, I dictated it and had a ghostwriter or a co-writer. And I went, oh, my gosh, I can do that. I can be driving around in the car dictating stories. And so I have a friend, Jill Ratson, who early on, in 07, 08, when we were going through the global crisis, it was the first book club call we started back then because not many of us were busy, and I said, what can we do to improve ourselves during this slow time? I started doing some blogging, and what I would do is I would write it and then send it to her, and she would clean it up because at the time I was very insecure and thought, I need someone to polish this up. And her voice, my
we
voice
are
was
experiencing
in her head.
Technical difficulties. You may not hear everyone on the call. You will be prompted when the conference is reconnected.
Barry, are you there?
I'm here. Yeah, hearing you. It's for the last moment or two, it was like a little bit fluttery, kind of.
Okay. So anyway, Jill could speak in my voice. So I had called her up. We'd been talking about it, and I said, I said, if I ever write a book, I'd like you to write it, and she was, interested in it, but she had a business going on her own with her husband. And then last year, Are you guys there? Sorry, I think you're having some technical difficulties. Barry, are you there?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay, great. So anyway, so I went to this conference. Everyone knows I like going to conferences, and I went to the National Speakers Association conference in Dallas, and I went to a workshop, and it was about writing a book. And basically at that point, I left that workshop. I said, I'm going to stop. It was always on my things to-do list, and I said, I really need to just execute on this. I called Jill. I said, if you can do it, great. If you can't, I'm going to move on and find someone else. She said she was ready. It was perfect timing. She said, when do you want to get it out? I said, I don't know. And she goes, how about year end? And that was July. And I said, really? She goes, yeah, we could send them for Christmas gifts to your clients. I'm like, perfect. And we started the next week, and we kept to a schedule, and we got it done, and I was very happy with the end result.
Very cool. No, it came out fantastic. And what was you're one of the most giving people in the business, and I think that's kind of what you're known for. What were you hoping? What was your goal to accomplish with the book, or is it just kind of here's my knowledge? But what was your goal? What did you want to accomplish? Anything particular?
Obviously, helping. I like to help people, and it's easier. I tend to repeat the same stories over and over, and I always, yesterday I did a roundtable at the ICSE camp, and I started telling a story, and I said, you guys have heard this story? And they're all like, no, never heard the story. I think I've, told the story 150 times, but, new people keep coming into the business, and I can't talk to all of them, and then people will walk up to me, like yesterday afternoon, someone walked up and said, that story that you told at the roundtable today was so awesome, and it helped me with, this issue I'm having with this deal. And I thought, well, why don't I just put the stories in a book, and maybe the book will end up in the right hands, and it'll help people, because certainly I'm not going to be able to be all over the country talking to, all of the real estate, leasing agents that, I could share 32 years of mistakes and successes with.
Hey, how did you come up with the slogan, and when was it?
Don't say no for the prospect. Did you just push that, or did someone else just push that? I love that.
Don't say no for the prospect.
No, I did. I got it sitting here on my desk. So.
Oh, awesome. So I've been saying that for years, and students of mine will come up to me, again at conferences and say it to me, and I would tell you that 90% of people that call me with a question or call me for advice, 90%, the answer is get out of your head. Always. I just had someone email me this morning and ask me something, and I said, why aren't you trying it? And the answer was, well, the vets in my office told me it's a waste of time, or what if they say no, or the negativity that we ourselves put in our heads to make us like, why didn't I write the book for 14 years? I wanted to write the book for 14 years. Why didn't I do it? The negative thoughts in my head. What if no one reads it? What if it's too hard to write it? It's all
recorded.
Why we don't execute on something, what I find, Barry, is 98% of the time it's because it's our own doing by having negative thoughts in our head.
No, when I read the book, it really has changed my mindset. Even, at the standpoint of some things, as far as properties sending you, there are times it's not going to be for her, and I've done this with other clients, and I don't bother sending, and I've kind of started, whether it's sending properties or conversations of, I don't know the answer in reality for them, so don't say no, and you literally don't say no for the prospect. It's kind of been popping in my mind certain times of just do it and let them, if it's not for them, they'll say no, and you move on, but don't, as you say, don't say no for them. Let them say no, or let them,
right.
Some percentage of the time they're actually going to say yes.
Exactly. I have a young man living with us for his senior year. His parents had to move for job reasons, and he was a senior in high school and very involved. And he's staying with us for the year. And he's kind of a shy kid, and he has his eye on this young lady. And we're talking at the dinner table. I'm like, well, why haven't you asked her out? And he goes, no, she might say no. And I'm like, I know, but I have the button, in the kitchen, and I'm pushing the button, and the kids are pushing the button. We're like, Ryan, don't say no for the prospect. She already said no if you don't ask her. It's already a no. So you can only go up. And if she says no, you're in the same place. So he went and asked her out, and of course she said yes. And we were like dancing around celebrating at home. And he went home for the weekend, and he told his mom, I didn't say no for the prospect. And his mom like, what are you talking about? But, how many times have we said, I want to talk to that retailer, and I think they would be great in my property. Or let's say, Dunkin' Donuts is down the street, and they don't have a drive-through, and you're building a property that you could put a drive-through. Well, they're not going to move over. Or they're not, I remember I did a Maggie Moo's ice cream. I had a smoothie guy going out. I looked up, best of ice cream in Davie. Maggie Moo's ice cream pops up as the best of. They're across the street in a federal realty-owned 1 million square foot, huge power center, and I'm in a little 42,000 square foot strip center. And the vet hat, the vet not negative, but the vet hat, the experienced hat on my head said, well, they would never move over here. They've got Costco, they've got Ross, they've got Home Depot, they've got TJ Maxx, they've got Office Depot, they have everyone over there, and I'm a little unanchored 42,000 square foot strip. They would never. And then I heard myself say that, and I said, okay, don't say no for the prospect. Take your vet hat off, take that experienced hat off, that jaded hat off, and go over there. So I grab my kids, and Friday night we go over there. I walk in, and there's 3,000 square foot ice cream store. Literally goosebumps up and down my arm because I know immediately that they're not supposed to be in 3,000 square feet. And they ended up moving a year later to my center. So that is don't saying no, not saying no for the prospect.
Well, I think it's also being willing, and you address this in the book. I'm looking at page 41, and it's counterproductive to be averse to hearing no. And I'm thinking back. I mean, you've got so many examples of that, and I even remember I just finished reading or listening to you had done recently the book Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, and he references, and you do too, embrace no. I mean, you want to get to know, like even the boy who's living with you, even if the answer had been no from the girl, at least then he kind of knows it and he goes about it, he moves on and makes that other thing. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with no.
Exactly.
All right.
Hey, guys,
I'll be done in like
your line,
guys, we've got some people, we need some people to mute your line if
you're
not talking.
Yeah, please mute your button.
Yeah, everyone mute your button if you could until you want to jump in for a question. Yeah, and I was actually talking about this yesterday with someone, and I think it was a Tom Hopkins cassette. Some of the people on the phone don't even know what cassettes are, Barry, but you and I do. So there was a cassette program, and what he said was, calculate what your average commission is. So let's say your average commission is, $3,000. And you canvass or you cold call or prospect 100 people. So that's $30 per door that you knock on. And what he used to say is, as you leave with the no, you in your head say, thank you for the $30. Thank you for the $30, because after you hit 100, you probably are going to get a deal. And so every no is a value towards the yes.
You're making a deposit into that
We are
virtual bank
experiencing
account.
technical difficulties. You may not hear everyone on the call. You will be prompted when the conference is reconnected.
We're really having technical difficulties today. I'm hoping everyone hears us, but we just need to keep going and assume that we're all good, and if not, we'll do the call another day. But let's keep going, Barry.
And if feel free, anybody that wants to jump in either a comment or a question for Beth is a great opportunity to interact with her directly. So please do jump in.
Beth, this is Miles Stepner with Davis & Young. I'm curious because there are so many, and this could be a little off topic with, as it relates directly to don't say no for the prospect, but with so many different areas where we can prospect these days, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Canvas, cold call. How could you sometimes, it's just like your head spinning. There are so many different directions you can travel to try and source leads. How would you recommend we organize ourselves to be able to attack on all these different fronts with our prospecting?
Great question, Miles. Great question. So I would tell you that the first thing that you want to identify is the audience, right? So if you are wanting to focus on national retailers. I think that I would probably stay focused on LinkedIn. I did a LinkedIn post actually, and I said, hey, national retailers, how do you want us leasing agents to reach out to you? And very few said email. They're getting 300 and 400 emails a day, and they're just, we as a culture aren't even deleting them anymore, right? So I think that, and I have a client who started using LinkedIn to set Vegas appointments 3 or 4 years ago, and they said that their Vegas appointments shot up 40% because the national retailers looking at their LinkedIn and saying, okay, here's 2 messages versus their emails which are 350. So I think, I don't know, Miles, how long you've been in the business, but, when I first, 32 years ago, our options, or maybe 20 years ago, our options were cold call, canvas, fax, right? Now people are cold calling through text. So I think that there are certainly there's a lot more options, but what works for me is picking the thing that you're most comfortable with, and I'm making sure that you're providing value. So I think that if you're throwing up your flyers on LinkedIn and thinking that someone's going to see that and respond, I don't think that's as good as Joshua Ladle in South Florida has been doing a bunch of market information. And I think that that's fabulous, because if a national retailer is looking in a submarket and they see Josh's posts about market comps, they're probably, my guess, going to reach out to him.
All right, no problem.
So I think don't try to be all and end all and do 15 ways to prospect. If you like, I love canvassing. I love getting out. I like looking in the market for acquisitions while I'm out. So I will never give up on canvassing. Cold calling that's not something I like doing. I don't get a lot of good results out of it, so I do a lot less of that. When I'm trying to find mom and pops, I've been doing Facebook direct messages, and I'm getting 33% response. Never in 32 years have I seen that kind of response. I love that, so I'm doing more of that. I just started on Instagram, and I'm going to try that. I don't know if that will work. I'm going to try it. But right now, the highest and best use of my time is canvassing and Facebook prospecting. So
excuse me for a second. Sorry, Beth, but somebody needs to mute their phone because we can hear all this noise, and I'm having a hard time, Beth, hearing you. Sorry.
Sure. If you guys could mute your phones unless you ask a question, that would help us. So I think that you can get lost and go down a rabbit hole. You have to stay disciplined. So I think that you pick, an hour a day to do social media prospecting, or maybe 3 times a week. With Facebook prospecting, you can only do 10 a day. 10, maybe on a stretch, we've been able to do 14. That can take us 10 or 15 minutes. It's kind of easy peasy. So I think pick 2 or 3, focus on that. Do that for a month. See if you're getting the return on your investment of your time. If not, switch it up. But don't try to do 10, because you won't. I don't think you'll get. It won't be quality. You won't get the return on your investment. I hope that answered your question.
That helps a tremendous amount with just kind of giving me some confidence in. I think not spreading myself too thin and just picking an avenue I'm comfortable with, trying to provide some value in my correspondence when I do that, so it engages them and brings them in. That helps a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
Hey, Beth, before we move on to the next one, it's Aaron. I was actually surprised you didn't say this, but you basically alluded to it without directly saying it. Time blocking, I've found, has been very helpful for me, especially as it relates to Jeb Blount's book. Mm-hmm. And so executing on, because doing something new with all the different platforms that are out there for sourcing leads, I think can be a little bit overwhelming for a lot of people. And so, like, what I've done is what I used to do, when now it's become habitual, but like what I used to do was I used to block out like 30 minutes every Monday afternoon to get on LinkedIn and just add more people and throw messages out there and stuff. So I would just insert the time blocking element of that. So basically having like a set time to do those Facebook messages or set time to make those cold calls to nationals, etc.
Thank you, Erin. 100% time blocking. I'm trying to do it. I try to do it when I wake up around 5:30 to 6:30 before I start breakfast for the kids, and then after I take them to their bus, I come back and try to do it for another hour, and then maybe I do it, sporadically during the day. But I try to get it done. And since Agent 2021, which was about a month ago, I've committed to doing 2 hours of social every day. I'm probably doing it about 3 times a week. But I've upped it. I've doubled that. Before that, a month ago, I was doing it about an hour a day. But I'm substituting social engagement for other things I was doing to prospect.
So is that, Beth, you going on Instagram, Facebook, just looking for contacts or sending messages, or what does that look like? What is kind of the time?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah, so an hour of it, so I do about 15 minutes of education, so I just started Instagram, so I'm learning about Instagram. So, 3 or 4 people yesterday said, so you're on Instagram now. It's very funny. So 15 minutes I try to do education. There's things that are new all the time, and I'm maybe learning from other people that are heavier on the certain platform. I'm watching maybe a post or a 2 or 3 minute tutorial on the new platform that I'm trying. 15 minutes is I'll go on, maybe 15 to 30 minutes depending. I'll go on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram and comment back to the people that have commented on my posts. So that's, just responding is about 15 to 20, 30 minutes, depending on how many I have. And then I do about 20 to 30 minutes of prospecting. So I might be doing, this morning I read the Shopping Centers Today magazine. I read about a new company that I am not connected with. I went on LinkedIn. I made sure I was connected to the decision makers of the company. And I did some research on the company. So now I can try to provide them value now that I've learned about their company. So I'm doing research. I don't want to just write them and go, hey, you want me to come train your people? That's just putting a flyer up without, I want to provide value first. So, and then I went to see if I'm going to the OAC, ICSC OAC in 2 weeks. I did some research to see of the people at that company who's going to be there. So that was about 15 or 20 minutes. That, in my mind, is prospecting. That's a potential future client that I don't think knows who I am, and I need to get on their radar. And then another 15 or 20 minutes posting. So whether it's a post on Facebook, whether it's a post, so some of you saw I did a post for the book club on Instagram. I think I did it on Facebook. I didn't do a post for the book club on LinkedIn. So I haven't done a post yet today on LinkedIn. I'll probably do something later on today. And what I'm going to do is that email I got this morning from the young woman who asked me for advice, now I'm going to do the post. Because if she has the question, and her question was, how do I get this retailer to respond? And I gave her 4 or 5 ideas. That will be my LinkedIn post later.
Very cool. Awesome. So, Beth, again, on the book, one of the things that jumped out at me, I'm looking at page 29 as far as lessons learned. And I think it's, first of all, you don't say no, so you're looking to open a dialogue with somebody, and you have the whole point of meeting someone for the first time is to open a dialogue. And you have, here's a novel idea. I want to ask, get someone talking, ask them a question. You've got that in bold. And then, obviously, then it's also then basically shut up and listen. Any thoughts there as far as kind of starting that dialogue and how you go about doing that?
Absolutely. This is crucial because, I just was showing space with someone the other day, and the way you ask questions is very important. So what I recommend we all do is we write down literally on a piece of paper or, on your tablet, however you like to, wherever you like to write things, and write the questions that you want to make sure that you get answered, whether it's on a call, whether it's at a showing, and then look at the question you want to ask and then rewrite it to where you're asking it more aspirational. For example, when you're canvassing, and those of you that have canvassed with me, and I still make the mistake, but sometimes I'll say, so is this your only location, right? Terrible question. Instead, how many locations do you have? right? Or if you're in a showing and you say, so do you have any experience? Terrible question. But what happens is you're in the moment. And when you're in the moment and you're trying to remember all the things I have to ask the person, you don't really think about how you're asking it. So I highly recommend you write the questions down and use it as a cheat sheet or, as you're showing space so that the person feels good after the interaction with you and you get the information you want to get. How many times, I'm sure a lot of us have been in the situation where we hang up the phone or we walk out of the showing and we're like, crap, I didn't ask them, where are they going to get their money to invest in the space or how did they get into the business? It's all about creating dialogue, and there's great questions to ask to start and create the dialogue. But it's hard when you're in the moment to remember those and to remember to ask them appropriately. So I'm a big believer in writing down the questions. There's nothing wrong with having a cheat sheet while you're in front of the prospect or on the phone talking to the prospect. So that and asking is everything. I've had showings. I was in Chicago last week, and we went canvassing with a group of people, and I'll do it, and then they'll do it, and then I'll do it, and then they'll do it, and inevitably, when they first do it, they're talking way more. And then when we flip it over, they see me do it. I say, okay, how many questions did I ask versus how many questions you ask? It's again, Tom Hopkins, telling ain't selling, asking is. You're not to go in there and go, you should come to my property because of this. You should da-da-da. You should. And that's all I hear a lot of is most people in sales think our job is to deliver the 43 reasons why they should buy our product, when instead we should be collecting and gathering information and then seeing if our product fits. And then delivering the information of our product, for example, so you're looking at the Winn-Dixie Center down the street, and we have the Public Center. Are you familiar with the difference in sales volumes between the two? Asking the question instead of telling. If you ask it, then they are more engaged than if you tell it. They tend to shut down.
Good point.
Hey, Beth, this is Justin in Knoxville, and I loved your point about the work that it takes to cultivate a pipeline and get those conversations going. What are some of your best practices for keeping that conversation going over sometimes the many years it takes to get that warm introduction into an actual deal that's moving through your pipeline?
Sure. Thanks, Justin. Providing value. And you know what? One more thing, providing value. So Barry Wolfe, our interviewer for today, was the listing broker on a property that I bought in 2008. And now I'm going to embarrass him, but every month since 2008, Barry Wolfe reached out to me every month since 2008 and provided value. And in 2016, and never asked for the business, this is the part that I embarrass him on, which of course he should have probably 3 years in, but never said, hey, do you want to sell the center, or do you want to sell any center, or can I help list? He always provided value. So he would send a little, he'd call me. I'm going to be at the ICSC in Vegas. Are you going to be there? And now he knows my rule that I don't meet with people that I know. If you're in South Florida, we can just meet in South Florida, right, Barry?
Correct.
Right. So, but we, in all those years, 8 years, we had lunch once. It was the closing lunch after we bought the deal. But he would drive by the center and he would say, hey, I saw you sign Mission Barbecue. Congratulations. I ate there in Baltimore. Love them. Or, oh, wow. Or he'd send me a text. Oh, I saw the renovations coming along nice. Or I'd get a call and he'd leave a voice message and said, I'm sending you the new Marcus and Millichap report. Pay attention to the category on unanchored strips. I think you'll find it very interesting. So always provided something of value. So 8 years later, when I said, okay, we've decided to sell Arrowhead, there was only one name, one person that I even considered hiring to lease the property. Now, 8 years, never asked me for the business, but he was always the top of mind guy. Now, Barry can talk about this. I'm sure he thought, 8 years I'm investing in this girl, but it was 2 minutes a month. So we joke in my workshops, I calculate that. 2 minutes a month times 12 months times 8 years. The investment of the time versus the commission check, had we sold it, would have been, 30,000% return on his investment. So Justin, you got to work. You've got to provide value. And I think what a lot of retailers hate is, hi, do you like my site? Hi, do you like my site? Hi, do you like my site? We don't do anything of value, which is, what Joshua Ladle's doing in South Florida by publishing market information, very thorough market information on LinkedIn, is phenomenal, because some national retailers looking in that market is going to find that information, I hope, and say, wow, this guy really knows this market inside and out. If I'm looking for a tenant rep broker, I'm going to call him. Does that help?
Yeah, of course it does. Sorry, I had you on mute there for a second. Thanks.
Yeah. So we don't do enough providing value.
And I think, Beth, and you hit on this with social, and you mentioned as far as, I think you said it's Josh, it's so much easier to do now than in 2008 when we first started working together. Back then it had to be me picking up the phone or maybe dropping something in the mail. Nowadays, like Josh is doing, you can do that on social, and they're providing value to people you don't even know you're providing value to. And at some point, some of those people are going to reach out to him or at a conference and come introduce themselves, or just, you can add value to people that, again, you don't even know, and you can leverage that, and you can be adding value while you're sleeping. So it's definitely gotten, far easier to do that today than, just 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Exactly. And I think it's helpful with career paths, for young people tell me all the time, well, what do I have to add to social? You have to, like what Gary Vaynerchuk says, document, don't create. Document the journey. Document, okay, I'm going canvassing for my first day today. I'm kind of scared, but this is what I learned. I had a young guy from Phillips Edison, Tim Butterfield. He said, I talk about it's not who you know, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. And he goes, how do I get people to know me? I'm 6 months in the job. And I said, let's do a Tuesday. I said, what do you like to do? He goes, I love to read. I said, great. Let's do a Tuesdays with Tim and write on LinkedIn every Tuesday what book you're reading and list 3 things that you got out of the book. Maybe you'll help other juniors. Maybe you'll help other people that read books. But, and look, I hope my clients, Phillips Edison, I hope you stay with Phillips Edison forever. But you're putting yourself out there. People are going to start to see you and know you. So being involved in providing value will help your career path. Not to mention, back to what Barry's point is it's very cheap to run ads to target audiences. So if you guys, want to target national retailers or buy on both Facebook and on LinkedIn. So running ads for $50 is pretty easy. I don't know if you guys have seen Jeff Dervich's Facebook ads, but he's not spending that much. I see that ad every day. Now, I am a buyer of real estate, and my guess is I'm his target audience. So advertising also is, cheap if you have a specific audience that you want to target with your valuable information you're posting.
Very cool. Well, real quick, Beth, we'd be remiss if we can't talk about this book or talk to you and not talk about canvassing. So, you're the canvassing queen. I don't think I'm not sure canvassing would even be that well known in the industry if not for you. How did you first kind of come across it? Is it something I know the answer to this, but is it something you still do? What is the benefit of it? What's canvassing karma? Let's kind of chat about canvassing.
Sure. So, I do it. I try to do it once a week. Early on in my career, I did it. I think I did it every day. I know when I was leasing the Fountains, 400,000 square foot property in Plantation, we took it over. The property had lost 100,000 square feet of tenants. So that property was absolutely persona non grata. And I would show up at the office around 8, do some paperwork. I was out by 10. I'd come back around 4, do paperwork, make some follow-up cold calls. I did that for every day. I was canvassing probably 50 to 100 people a day. 6 months in, not one deal. And I thought, okay, I obviously should not be being a leasing agent because I don't know what I'm doing. But it was we had to turn around the thought process of the local retail community because since 100,000 people had moved out, the local mom and pops, the nationals that were there were doing great, but the mom and pops had no interest. And they're like, the place is jinxed. Why would we go there? And what they didn't understand was the developer had given full build-outs, no guarantees, and a year free rent. So when the free rent went away and the mom and pop had zero investment in the space and their rent went from 0 to 40 in a market that should have been 25, it was easier for them all to move out, which they did. So overcoming the odds, so I went to my boss after 6 months and I said, I obviously shouldn't be in leasing. And he said, well, and back then we didn't have CRM. We had binders with prospect sheets, and I had 5 binders full of prospect sheets. He said, just, what you're doing is right. And thank God I stuck with it because the compounded effort of that canvassing, I always say, get 5 no's before you give up on the prospect. If you think the prospect could be good for your property, don't give up until you have 5 no's. Because the first 3, they can't even appreciate who you are or what you're selling. So it takes 3 for when you walk in, for them to go, oh, you're the leasing agent person for that shopping center. So the next 6 months, I leased 50,000 square feet. It was my first $100,000 year, and I was 32, I think. So canvassing works, but you can't people. I run into ICSC and they say, oh, canvassing doesn't work. I go, really? Well, tell me why you think that. Well, I went once and I didn't get a deal. So yeah, that for sure, that doesn't work. But if you work it, just like Barry worked me, and if you canvass, and the whole canvassing karma thing is for sure, when you have that person, maybe it's the National, the Starbucks, Sherwin-Williams, TJ Maxx, and you've sent them an LOI, you're waiting for them to call back. I promise you, if you go out canvassing, that you'll get that call you've been waiting for. I mean, that's going to be a future book, is canvassing and canvassing karma stories, because I get those all the time. I get texts, just had a canvassing karma today. So I think that happens. And, that's just whether it's granola or luck. But, the universe will reward you if you get up off your butt and go do the hard stuff. I mean, canvassing is not easy. It's not. But, the best canvassing is when it's pouring rain. Or, I was in Chicago last week, and it was freezing. It was 22. It might have been even lower than that. And we went canvassing, and my team couldn't believe how much interest we had from the prospects. So I'm a huge believer in canvassing. I go every chance I get. I just am a little busier today than I was in my junior years. But in my junior years, I would do 3, 4, 5 days a week.
That's great. No, and I'm a big believer in the karma. Like you say, going out in the cold or the rain, I agree. The universe watches those things. It makes no sense, I know. But if you're out there doing it in the cold or the rain or even on a holiday, you get bonus points as it relates to karma, and it will come back to you. It may not be that day. It may not even be that week. But at some point, it does come back to you, and I don't know why or how, but it just does.
Well, in the rainy days, the reason I remember I was going to CB in Raleigh, and my client calls, he goes, oh, you're going to kill me. I said, why is that? He goes, it's going to be pouring rain here tomorrow. I'm like, great. He's like, what? You're crazy. I said, tell the girls to wear their rain boots, because when it's pouring rain, there's no one going into the stores. So the store owners love you. They have more time to talk to you, and they feel bad for you. So, I just say get a rain jacket, get some boots, and get an umbrella and go.
That's awesome. Anybody input? Anybody thoughts?
All right, this is Matt here in Los Angeles area. How are you?
Hi.
Great. First of all, congratulations again on the book. That's phenomenal that you've had it unleashed finally, so that's great. And for my story, that's similar because, as I said in the previous call, I'm from Columbus, Ohio originally. So after I did an MOD shift from Eastland Mall, I said, okay, I'm going out there prospecting. It's, of course, for me, it was any time of the day. It didn't matter. So it was one of those like snowstorms where it was, very slick out on the street, icy and, just piled up snow in a parking area. So I went into this old shopping center where I used to go as a child. And don't you know, I found a tenant that looked like they were a national tenant, but they were local. And I said, whoa, I haven't seen this here before. It was actually like around the area where the Chuck E. Cheese was, moons ago when I was a kid. So I went there, talked with them, got information. I wound up getting called back from that business owner, and they said, well, we were actually going to contact your mall, and, lo and behold, you contacted us first. I said, well, there you go. So after that, we talked and walked through space, even met with them really after hours because they could only meet in the evening. So I said, okay, we'll meet 7, really it was after 8 o'clock, towards mall closing. So don't you know, they wanted the Radio Shack space that became vacant, and they made it their own, and my former boss who had hired me and then moved on to her former company, saw the pictures of the space. She said, this does not look like a Radio Shack. It doesn't look anything like that. And don't you know, honest to God, tooting my horn, I filled that Radio Shack space faster than anybody else had their Radio Shack space filled. So that was very proud. I even have that on my LinkedIn and everything because I looked around at some of the, more dominant shopping centers and theirs were still vacant. So, that was a proud moment of canvassing in the middle of a snowstorm when nobody else really was out there.
That's fabulous. I love that story. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing.
That's great.
What I love about canvassing, a lot of times when I'm canvassing, I find properties that I'm interested in buying. So that's why I still like to canvass a lot because I'm looking for different things. But also when I'm canvassing, I find uses that I didn't know existed. So, I was canvassing once and I walked into this, what looked to be like a catering facility, and I didn't know what it was. And I walked in and I said, we saw this counter, and we could smell food, and it was in the elbow of the center. And this girl comes bebopping out from the back, and I said, she goes, hi, how can I help you guys? And I'm standing there with 4 people, and she says, I said, well, we own shopping centers. What do you guys do? She goes, oh, we're the Broward County, which is the county I live in, the Broward County School District lunch provider. And I'm like, you're what? And he goes, we provide lunches to all of the public schools in Broward County. And I'm like, from this one location? Oh, no, we have 7 locations. I said, oh, my gosh, goosebumps. I said, so do you, need more locations? She goes, absolutely. She goes, actually, we're looking for 3 more locations now. I go, well, and what kind of spaces do you like? She goes, oh, we like older restaurants that have hoods and grease traps, and we don't need to be in a very prominent location. We can be in the corner like this one. Goosebumps. So who that would not have been on my top 5 list of prospects to go after. I didn't even know that existed.
Hey, Beth, it's Jake Dugan. How are you?
Hey, Jake, how are you?
Good. I actually do have a tenant that I didn't even know existed. Good story for you. I'm not sure if you're familiar with a concept called Code Ninjas.
I am. They just opened in Cooper City. I think Mogerman did that deal.
Okay.
Tell us your story.
So yeah, they're starting to expand. I'd encourage anyone to look them up. They take about 2,000 to 2,400 square feet, and it's basically a concept where there is a studio, and they teach young children how to write code, and it's through a video game. So the kids think they're playing a video game, but in reality they're learning how to code. And just with the way technology is moving, I think it's a really viable tenant. And so I'm actually negotiating a deal with them, and the lease should be signed here in a couple of weeks in Austin, Texas. So they're a great concept and something I didn't even know existed till I was canvassing and stumbled upon them.
Exactly, right? So sitting in your office saying, okay, I'm going to call a beauty supply or I'm going to call Kumon, if you don't get your butt out and start looking at other properties, you wouldn't even know. And what a great destination tenant that is, right? Which we all want more destination tenants.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Beth, it's Eddie Gonzalez in Phoenix.
Eddie, how are ya?
I'm living the dream. How are you?
Living the dream.
I have a quick story for you. I just got off a phone call with a landlord. We've got an interesting 2,800 square foot space in a small shopping center. The 800 square feet of it was an addition off the back end of the center.
Huh.
Gentleman approached me and said, hey, I do something very similar to what Peloton does, and I just need a little tiny space so I can bring a few people in, video stream me doing these cycle classes, and I want to do it somewhere that's kind of a grungy feel. Do you have anything? We looked at the space. He's like, yeah. And I, of course, just read your book, so I didn't say no. He couldn't only have the back part of it. The landlord loves the idea, and I'm going to write the LOI when we get off the phone call. Here's the best part of
Eddie. That's fabulous. Hey, if any of you guys are not following Eddie Gonzalez on Instagram, you should. You're motivating me, Eddie, to do more Instagram.
Beth, here's the kicker. It's a pretty low incentive. We were going to lease the whole 2,000 square feet for about $3,000 a month.
Yeah.
This gentleman has made a $2,000 a month offer on the 800 square foot space.
Wow. Fabulous. Cool. Congratulations.
Thank you. You motivated me to do it. I appreciate you.
Yay!
Awesome.
Hey,
and
Beth.
Beth.
Yeah, it's Jorge Ventura here.
Hey, Jorge, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
Awesome.
So I'm sitting here with our new hire, Jessica Alvarez, and I've pretty much been trying to teach some of the tidbits that you taught me along the way. Can you speak a little bit about tenant placement in shopping centers and what makes a shopping center successful as far as destination and compulsory uses?
Sure. So every shopping center in my mind has two kinds of tenants, either impulse or destination. And we need to make sure we're putting the right tenant in the right space. And I think that as I travel around the country, I would tell you that 90% of the vacancy are in the elbows. And if you look around at the shopping center, that 90% of vacancy is in the elbow, you're going to find that there's a destination tenant that is in an impulse space that should have been put into the elbow. So, for example, an L-shaped strip center with a vacant 6,000 square feet in the elbow, and you look at the rest of the center, and on the end cap is a physical therapy studio for 4,000 square feet, right? So it's very important because I think we would all agree that 100% of destination tenants want to be in impulse spaces, and 0% of impulse tenants can succeed in destination spaces. So we should not be in a hurry to just get a lease done, right? We should be smart. So when H&R Block calls us and says we want at the end cap, but we know they're only open 3 months of the year, that's just not the right tenant if we want to drive traffic to the center. So, and there is one time where I will agree to put a destination tenant on an end cap is when they pay $5 more a square foot, or 20% more. I can be mercurial when it comes to that, but it's not smart leasing. That's not Rockstar leasing by, H&R Block calling and saying, I want the end cap, and you don't do everything in your power to get them off of the end cap, right? Or a physical therapy. That same story, the fountains, the 400,000 square feet, we had a tenant that was, it was called Sportsman's Paradise, and for those of you in South Florida might remember them 20 years ago in Dade County in Miami, they had 7 locations, and they wanted to open their first one in Broward. But they wanted the main space, and they wanted to pay single digits. And if you can imagine, we were desperate. But my client, GE, is like, and I agreed, they wanted 12,000 square feet, and I'm like, I can't give them 12,000 square feet in the best space. Because at a single digit, because the minute you do that, the rest of your deals in lesser, well-placed locations, you're going to get a much lesser rent. But and we were really walking from the deal, and I said, hey, why do you want, what's the main reason you want this space? And they said, well, people don't know us in Fort Lauderdale. They know us in Miami, but they don't know us in Fort Lauderdale, and we need the main space to get the visibility and exposure, the impulse space. And I said, okay, well, how long will it take you for the Broward County residents to figure out, who you are and what you're, that you're here? And they said 2 years. So I went back to GE and I said, look, I have this idea. I've been canvassing for 6 months, 100 people a day. We have squat. Okay, this is a 12,000 square foot tenant who wants space in our center. They would drive families to our property. This is like before Sports Authority. It was a great use. I said, why don't we do this? Why don't we see if they'll take the 12,000 square feet, and in 2 years we get them off the end cap. We take back the front 4,000 square feet and add it behind. Let's see if they would do that. They did, we did, and that was the first deal. You guys, I'm sure, have all leased properties that are hard to lease. It takes the first one to get, the momentum going. So we did that. We leased the 12,000 square feet. It was a low rent deal. Fast forward today, that end capped, when before DDR knocked it down and kind of changed the shopping center, was worth 40. So locking down that end cap, that impulse space, is terrible long term. So if you can do it, so making sure that you're putting destination tenants in destination spaces and leaving the impulse spaces open for the impulse uses, because if you only have destination spaces, you're never going to lease to an ice cream guy or a discount hair salon or fast casual restaurants, right? They need their impulses, and they need impulse spaces.
Great information, Beth. I appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Beth, Ron Osborne here in Cooper City. You talk about bad brokerage. I've called on a property with one of the real well-known companies up in West Palm Beach for a specific user. He immediately said, no, the city's not going to allow that use. Fast forward 48 hours, I get a call from the owner, who I know because he saw my LinkedIn post, and said, would this tenant work? I've got a property up in XYZ city. And I said, absolutely. We start talking. I asked him who his agent was. It's kind of like the same property. It was. And he said no for his client. Meanwhile, the client's going to the city to see if he can get this kind of use, because he says it's only good for either a fast food or an oil change guys. It's the only people that can work there.
Yeah.
So that's where you've got to be really careful not to say no for your client.
For sure. I some of you know that I had a hard time leasing one of my own properties. I'm the canvassing and leasing queen, and could not lease one of my own properties, Sawgrass. Hired Mike Mogerman to lease it. I thought we couldn't do a certain use. He went to the city, had 2 or 3 meetings, calls me up and said, they'll do it if we do this, that, and another. So this is me. Like, I own the deal and didn't do the homework and said no for myself and no for the prospect. So it's good to push people and ask them and get them out of their comfort zone and say, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? Right? So, but a lot of us are vets, are vet hats. You juniors on the phone, Jessica, who works for Jorge, don't, listen to him sometimes, but when he says no, Jessica, don't listen. If you have an idea, like, why am I Facebook prospecting? I'm Facebook prospecting because one day, 3 or 4 years ago, Mackenzie, who worked for me as a leasing agent, walked into my office and said, I think we should do some prospecting on Facebook. Mind you, I was not even on Facebook at the time. So not even on Facebook, I gave the great advice of, that will never work. Okay, that will never work, and I'm not even on Facebook. So how smart was I to even give advice on something I didn't even participate in on a platform? And I heard myself, literally the words coming out of my mouth, and I said, sorry, wrong answer, you go ahead and try it. But absolutely in my head thought, never going to work. She did it. We did a deal with Jimmy's Chocolates like a month later. And I immediately got on Facebook and said, there's something to this. So vets, keep your mouth shut to your juniors. If they have an idea, even if you've tried it and it didn't work, maybe they'll do it differently and make it work. And it's okay for them to learn the lessons anyway. You can say, well, when I did it, it didn't work, but, go for it.
There goes the rest of my training for the day.
Beth, real quick,
so Barry, we're at 12:25. 12:24. I usually try to end this a little early, unless to get everyone back so they can get busy. Do we have any other? Barry, do you have one last question, or is there anyone on the call that has a burning question?
I had real quick one last question. Well, no, I'll let you. You can go on. Whoever that was.
Oh, hey, Beth, it's Debbie Ashland. How are you?
Debbie, I loved your post this week of Kiki's and your FSU hat.
Thank you. This is actually not a question, but I've just been in a canvassing slump, so this was just a great call for me just to get back out there and get myself motivated. So thank you, for the book also, but sharing all of your knowledge as well.
My pleasure, hon. The best way to get out of a canvassing slump, you know what it is?
Canvas.
Oh, canvas.
You knew I was going to say that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But that's, we all get in funks. I get in funks myself. And I promise you, we all do it. It all happens. And the best way is to get up and go out and do something to shake it up a bit. And then usually you get a lead, and then you're out of the you get out of the funk.
Yep. Great. Thank you.
Even the best athletes have, whether it's baseball, basketball, whatever, they go in slumps, and they have the confidence. They just keep swinging, keep shooting, and eventually it just works its way out.
Yeah, exactly. It works its way out.
Well, congrats again, Beth. I think everybody in this call, knows you, loves you, and it's really, fantastic what you've done. It's a real gift to the industry. And if you haven't read it, as I said, it's a phenomenal read, but it's an easy read. It's like Beth, like you say, even our business it's not easy, but it's not difficult, but it's not easy. I don't remember exactly how it's along those lines. It's I'd say the same thing. It's a great read, but tons and tons of information. We've just barely scratched the surface on this call. We could have a 3-hour call and barely scratch the surface. So congrats again.
Well, thank you, and I'm actually 6 chapters in on the next one. The next one is going to be a playbook for year 1 in the industry, Rookie to Rockstar. The acting title is You Can Do It Too, and it's going to be about 300 pages. It's going to be very, very thorough and deep, and, day 1, month 1, week 1. Jessica, I probably won't have it done until Vegas, but, Jorge and Jessica, you guys will like that. It's going to be really meaty, and I think you guys will all love it. But thank you for supporting me. And if anyone has any other questions that you didn't get to ask on the call, just email me, and I will respond. And the next book club is Getting Things Done by David Allen. It's March 15th. And the book after that, so everyone has skipped that book because I'm getting tons of comments on Atomic Habits, which is April 12th. So I love that you guys love Atomic Habits, but don't forget about Getting Things Done, which is the lead-up to Atomic Habits. So thank you guys. Barry, thank you so much for being my interviewer today. I really appreciate it, taking time out of your busy schedule. And I love you all, and thanks for the support.